Imagine sleeping peacefully in the city of Pripyat. Suddenly, at 1:23 a.m., a reactor explodes inside the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Invisible radiation spreads across Europe, and within hours, an entire city begins turning into a ghost town. What really happened that night?
April 26, 1986. It was a quiet night in the Soviet town of Pripyat. Families were sleeping. Children were dreaming about school the next day. Workers were finishing their late shifts. Everything seemed normal. But inside the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant, something was about to go terribly wrong. Within a few seconds, a powerful explosion would break the silence of the night. Fire would rise into the dark sky. Invisible radiation would begin spreading across Europe, and the world would witness the worst nuclear disaster in human history. This is the story of that night. In the 1970s and 80s, the Soviet Union wanted to show the world its power. One important symbol of this power was nuclear energy. Nuclear plants could produce huge amounts of electricity. They could power cities, factories, and homes. So the Soviet government built many nuclear power stations. One of the largest was built near the city of Pripyat in northern Ukraine. This plant was called the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. The plant had 4 nuclear reactors. These reactors used uranium fuel to create energy through nuclear reactions. At that time, many engineers believed nuclear power was safe, but the design of the Chernobyl reactors had serious problems. Unfortunately, many people did not understand how dangerous these problems could be. Only 3 kilometers from the plant stood the modern Soviet city of Pripyat. Pripyat was a young and beautiful city. It was built especially for the workers of the nuclear power plant. Almost 50,000 people lived there. The city had parks, schools, hospitals, cinemas, and swimming pools. Families believed they had a bright future there. Children played in the streets and parks. Many people felt proud to live in a city connected to nuclear science. But none of them knew that their city would soon become a ghost town. On April 25, 1986, engineers at the Chernobyl plant planned a safety test. They wanted to see if the reactor could still produce electricity during a power failure. The test seemed simple.
But the reactor needed to operate at a very low power level. And this was extremely dangerous for the reactor design used at Chernobyl. Several mistakes were made during the test. First, the power of reactor number 4 dropped too low. Second, many safety systems were turned off. Third, the operators tried to increase power in a risky way. The reactor became unstable, but the workers did not fully understand how dangerous the situation had become. At 1:23 in the morning on April 26th, everything went wrong. The operators pressed a button to stop the reactor, but instead of stopping the reaction, the reactor suddenly became more powerful. The power increased very quickly. Within seconds, the reactor produced more energy than it could handle. Then came a massive explosion. The roof of the reactor building was blown off. Huge pieces of metal and concrete flew into the air. Burning graphite from the reactor core landed on the roof and ground. A second explosion followed. Now the nuclear reactor was completely open to the night sky. Radioactive material began rising into the atmosphere. The disaster had begun. Soon after the explosion, firefighters arrived at the plant. They believed they were fighting a normal fire. They had no idea they were entering a place full of deadly radiation. One of the first firefighters was Vasily Ignatenko. He and his team climbed onto the roof of the reactor building. Their job was to stop the fire from spreading to other reactors. The men worked bravely, but they had no protective equipment against radiation. Many of them received extremely high doses of radiation. Within hours, they began feeling sick. Some felt dizzy, some vomited, but they continued fighting the fire. Their courage helped prevent an even bigger disaster. Radiation is dangerous because you cannot see it, you cannot smell it, you cannot taste it, but it can slowly destroy the human body. After the explosion, radioactive particles spread into the air. Wind carried them across large parts of Europe. Countries like Belarus, Poland, Sweden, and Germany later detected radiation. But in the beginning, many people in Pripyat did not know what had happened. Children still went outside to play. Families watched the strange glowing fire from a distance. They did not know the danger around them. At first, the Soviet government did not tell the public the truth. Leaders were afraid of panic and international embarrassment, so they stayed silent. People in Pripyat continued their normal life for almost 2 days, but radiation levels were rising dangerously. Finally, the government decided to evacuate the city. On April 27th, buses arrived in Pripyat. Officials told residents they must leave temporarily. They said people would return in a few days. So families packed only small bags. They left their homes, pets, toys, and personal belongings behind, but they never returned. Pripyat became an abandoned city. After the explosion, thousands of workers were sent to clean the disaster. These people became known as liquidators. They included soldiers, engineers, miners, and firefighters. Their job was extremely dangerous. Some liquidators removed radioactive debris from the roof of the reactor. Others built tunnels under the reactor to prevent further explosions. Helicopters dropped sand, lead, and boron onto the burning reactor. Many workers received high radiation doses, but their work helped stop the disaster from becoming even worse. Historians believe more than 600,000 people took part in the cleanup. To contain the damaged reactor, engineers built a huge concrete structure. This structure covered reactor number 4. It became known as the sarcophagus. The goal was to trap radioactive material inside. The structure was built very quickly in 1986, but it was not designed to last forever. Years later, scientists realized a stronger cover was needed. In 2016, a massive steel structure called the New Safe Confinement was placed over the old reactor building. It was one of the largest engineering projects in the world.
Radiation exposure caused serious health problems. Many firefighters and plant workers developed acute radiation sickness. Some died within weeks. One of the most tragic stories was that of Vasily Ignatenko, the brave firefighter. He died weeks after helping fight the reactor fire. His wife later shared the painful story of his final days. In the years after the disaster, many people developed cancer, especially thyroid cancer. Children were particularly affected because radioactive iodine spread through milk and food.
Even today, scientists continue studying the long-term health effects. After the disaster, the Soviet government created a large restricted area around the plant. This area became known as the Chernobyl Exclusion Zone. It covers about 30 kilometers around the reactor. Most people are not allowed to live there. Nature slowly returned to the area. Wild animals such as wolves, deer, and wild horses now live there. Strangely, wildlife increased in the absence of humans. Today, the empty city of Pripyat still stands. Schools, homes, and amusement parks remain frozen in time. Rusty buildings and broken windows tell the story of a sudden evacuation. The world did not learn about the disaster from the Soviet Union first. Instead, scientists in Sweden detected unusual radiation levels at a nuclear plant. At first, they thought their own plant had a leak, but soon they realized the radiation was coming from somewhere else. International pressure forced the Soviet government to admit the accident. The news shocked the entire world. Many countries began rethinking nuclear safety. The Chernobyl disaster had huge political consequences. It damaged trust in the Soviet government. Many citizens felt angry about the secrecy and poor safety standards. Some historians believe the disaster helped weaken the Soviet system. Just 5 years later, in 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. Today, Chernobyl remains a powerful warning about the dangers of nuclear technology when safety is ignored. Today, the abandoned streets of Pripyat attract scientists, historians, and tourists. Visitors walk through empty schools. They see old textbooks, toys, and photographs still lying in dusty rooms. One of the most famous places is the abandoned amusement park. Its yellow Ferris wheel was supposed to open just days after the disaster, but it never welcomed a single child. The park became a symbol of lost dreams. The disaster taught the world important lessons. Nuclear energy can provide huge power, but it must be managed with extreme care and responsibility. Governments must be honest with their citizens during emergencies, and safety systems must never be ignored. Chernobyl showed how human mistakes, poor design, and secrecy can combine to create a tragedy. On that quiet night in April 1986, the people of Pripyat went to sleep believing their lives were normal. By morning, their world had changed forever. Homes were abandoned, families were separated from their past, and a city full of life became a silent reminder of one of the greatest disasters in history. The story of the Chernobyl disaster is not just about a nuclear accident. It is about courage, mistakes, sacrifice, and lessons for the future. History is full of powerful stories like the Chernobyl disaster. If you want to learn English through real historical stories, make sure to subscribe to this channel. Like the video, share it with your friends, and write in the comments which historical story you want to learn next.